Å få private bilder spredt på nett noe av det vondeste som kan skje. Og midt i all fortvilelsen det lett å føle seg totalt hjelpeløs. Hva ville du gjort i en slik situasjon?
For sikkerhetens skyld har vi inkludert viktige sikkerhetstjenester i våre mobilabonnement. Du kan blant annet få hjelp til å fjerne uønsket innhold på nett. Bli tryggere med mobilabonnement fra Telenor. Se telenor.no.
Hallo, det her episode 2 av Jernverket podcast. Helle Stenkløv, det meg, og jeg møtte Michael Sadler fra Saga i fjor høst.
Hi, this is Michael Sadler from Saga, and you are listening to...
Hello. Yeah, this is actually working.
Actually working?
Yeah.
Actually working.
Correct, okay. Then we'll just, this will be some kind of standard interview with the usual questions and also some questions from the fans. And you're to pick the songs for the show. We'll do that last. Yeah.
Really?
That'll be nice.
Oh.
So, welcome to Radio Rock Studio, Michael Sadler from Saga.
Pleasure to be here.
How are you today?
Not bad, considering I just rolled off a 10.5-hour bus ride, but pretty good.
Yeah, you're
always nice to be in Oslo. It can always picks up the spirits, and it's a beautiful day. So,
when were you in Oslo last time?
About a year ago. We kind of come on a yearly basis,
but maybe not anymore, because this is maybe your last tour.
It looks like. I mean, it's the final chapter is what it's being called. I mean, I don't like to say anything is final in life, but we're definitely at least a year. We're backing off from the touring. We'll probably still be making some music, either collectively or individually. But it's time to take a little hiatus, step back, and see how things go. After a year or two, we'll see what happens.
Because it's been 40 years now.
It has been 40 years. Thanks for the reminder.
Can you tell us how it all began when you started the band?
Wow, 1977. I had been in a band with Jim Crichton, and that band broke up. He joined another one. I became a cab driver for a while, and graphic artist, and then a graphic artist salesman, 3-piece suit. I came home from work one day and looked in the mirror, and I thought I didn't recognize the person on the other side. So Jim and I started writing songs together, and one thing led to another. And before we knew it, we had the band. Jim's brother Ian was a logical choice as for guitar. Jim had played in another band with Steve Nagas, and also with Peter Roche on the original keyboard player. So we put the five of us together in a room and went for it. And 40 years later, here we are, still standing.
I think you need to move the microphone maybe a little bit, or just turn it a little bit.
How about that?
Yeah, that's better.
Speak more directly into the microphone, Michael.
You should know that.
I should know that after all the... I mean, after, again, 40 years. Actually, I've been singing longer than that, but I should know about microphones, shouldn't I?
There's always something new to learn.
Radio mics are slightly different than live mics, though. So.
Yeah, they are.
I have a bit more freedom with mine.
All right, so 1977 was the year it all started.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a bit about the road from there to today? It's like we can't talk about every album. We have to bring up some highlights in the career of Saga.
I mean, we did the usual... The sort of club circuit in Toronto. We just grinded that out and worked on the material for the first record over and over and over, and test driving it. Found Paul Gross, the producer of the first 3 albums, took an interest in the band and got behind us and got us in the studio for the first record. Got a deal, and the first 2 territories to take off for us were, strangely enough, Germany and Puerto Rico. Complete polar opposites in terms of culture and background, but you go where the audience is. And Germany, one thing led to another over here, and it just spread over all of Europe. So highlights, my gosh, 40 years. One of the highlights probably was playing Rock am Ring. I believe it was 1985. It was like 90,000 people. And that really was a huge turning point for the band in terms of our profile over on this side of the pond. But You can imagine after 40 years, it's been a real roller coaster, lots of highs and lows. Mostly highs, but the low moments I don't. I don't believe in regret. I believe that shoulda, coulda, woulda. Whatever. I mean that happens in every aspect of life. And if you make a wrong decision, as long as you don't make that same kind of decision the second time around, and you didn't learn from your mistakes, then you're a fool, and then you can't complain to anybody but yourself. So to say you regret something, you may have had an error in judgment, but as long as you learned from it, then it was a learning experience, and we've had lots of learning experiences.
Yeah,
all bands do.
Yeah, of course. And you also, since you've been going on for different like 4 decades, or now it's 5 decades. Yeah. So you were also in the music television era with MTV and music videos.
We were one of the first, actually, when we started. MTV was just beginning, and I remember when we did Worlds Apart, and the song "On the Loose" was going to be released as a single, and Wind 'Em Up close behind it. But I remember the management coming to us and say, "I think we should do a video." And we said, "What do you mean a video?" "Well, we should do a music video, like a video of the song, like half performed and like a storyline." And we were like, "What are you talking about?" Because it was a whole new genre, a whole new medium. And so we said, okay, so we made one. And at the time, MTV was just starting out in the States. So they didn't really have a lot of content. So we got in there really early. So consequently, we got a lot of rotation because really, like once an hour you could see the video. But again, that was very instrumental in breaking the band too.
You starred in the videos yourself too.
Yeah, it was that era. Yeah, it was that whole style of videos where you've got the band sort of half performing, and then you've got the storyline, as it were. So you become an overnight actor.
But it's been 21 albums.
Yes, it has.
And one of the listeners and fans asked if you have one song that means more or to you than the others, like one song that's close to your heart.
Probably the song "Goodbye." I was thinking about. In general, people leaving this world, we all, experience that, the death of a loved one or a friend, or in my case, I kind of channeled my thoughts about my father who passed when I was 13. But again, it wasn't specifically about him, but it's more about saying goodbye to someone in that sense, or like "see you later," which I believe. But that song means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and performance-wise, I like my performance on it. So I'm very fussy. I'm not 100% happy with anything we've ever recorded. I can listen to pick album number 14 or album number 8 or whatever, and you can pick a track and I'll tell you what I don't like about it and what I'd like to re-sing. And the other thing is, unless you perform all the songs that are going to be on an album, and get used to them, and until the vocal is alive and finds its own identity. If you just record and write the song and then record it in the studio, I find that even songs like "Wind 'Em Up" or some of the older things that I've been singing for almost 40 years, I sing them slightly differently because I'm used to the song now, and the inflections are slightly different. So that's why I look back on some songs and go, "Oh, I'd really like to re-record that now." So.
But what is your least favorite album in your discography?
Least favorite?
Yeah.
Well, I love them all in varying degrees. Probably "Pleasure and the Pain," because it is both. It was a strange album to make, and it was just it was a funny time. I don't not like it as a whole. There are elements of it that I question, but there was a reason why we did it at the time, so I can't. Again, it's looking back going, I wish we hadn't done that. No, I'm glad we did, because it It showed a side of us that it was either possible to do or not possible to do. And I think you have to do that as a band. You can't just keep churning out. You can't find a winning formula and just stay with it. You can if you like, but it curbs your creativity, and I don't think you grow as a musician or as a person if you do that. You know, I can name a number of bands that they found a winning formula, and you can't tell me, you know, a song from album 1 or album 4 or album 7, they kind of just sound the same. And there's nothing wrong with that if you purely want to go the commercial route, I guess. But if you're doing it for mostly creative reasons, you want to try and grow. So that means trying different things. And if you end up with an album like Pleasure and the Pain, then you end up with Pleasure and the Pain. So.
A good choice of name and...
because it really is that. For me to listen to, I get both emotions at the same time.
But Saga as a band has done some interesting and different things too, because you had the Chapters puzzle, like a kind of song puzzle that went over many, many years and albums. Can you tell us about the thoughts behind this and how it all began?
The idea was Jim Crichton had the idea of this story, story set in the future. You can call it sci-fi if you like, but. He had the finished story in his head, and we thought rather than do a concept album, which a lot of people, just they hear the word concept, they won't even listen to it because, I don't want a concept album, I don't want to have to think. Instead of doing that, we decided to break it up, like as you said, like a jigsaw puzzle, and put 2 chapters on each record, but out of sequence, which makes people try and fill in the holes and figure out what's happening next. And the nice thing about doing that was we kept the lyrics semi-ambiguous in the sense that it wasn't really giving anything away, even when you put all 16 chapters back to back. What I did find when it was complete, that people were submitting what they thought the whole story was about, and really detailed. I mean, like 30, 40-page breakdown of exactly what's going on in each chapter and the conclusion. And most of them were close, but were really not getting all of it or getting the point of it. But having said that, the fact that they went to the trouble and a great deal of trouble to figure it out and write it down and so committed to it was a great testament to how much we had inspired someone to actually think about it and get into it. So in that sense, it worked.
But did you yourself finish the story the moment you thought about this puzzle idea, or did you create the songs and the lyrics throughout the years?
We knew the beginning and the end, and how to get there was the trick, and that was the kind of challenging part and fun part. What ended up happening? We knew there would be 2 chapters on an album, for example. And we would have some songs, and we need 2 chapters songs. And let's say we want to work on chapter 7 and chapter 3 on this one. 7 needs to be very epic. I'm probably getting, and all the fans are going, no, 7's not like that. It's actually, I'm just saying this as an example. Whatever number it was, we say, okay, at that point in the story, this needs to be an epic sounding song because a lot's going on. So that's going to be that chapter. And we need a softer sort of retrospective song. So let's see what we've got. That's perfect for that. So we would take those 2 songs, they would become the chapter song for that album. So that's basically how it worked out. And the songs basically decided which ones were going to be chapters. You could just tell that it was, we need this kind of song. That's perfect. So. Mm-hmm. It was fun.
Yeah, it sounds so exciting.
It was. And it's really good for creativity because it's just, instead of like, what are we going to write about? It also gives you a goal, it gives you a vision of, and you know what the lyrics should be about what's happening at that point in the story. So.
Can you tell us a bit more about how you compose the songs with the theme and melodies and harmonies? There was this fan of yours, Tore Morten, that especially asked about this. So maybe he's trying to compose a song himself.
It's I don't want to say different every time, but it really depends on the mood you're in. It depends on how inspired you are by something. I mean, I can come up with some lyrics sometime in the middle of the night and just wake up and just write it down down really quick so I don't forget it. Musically, there's never been a shortage of musical ideas. It's really sorting out the ones that, everyone wants to use, everyone agrees on. Generally what happens is, especially in the meantime, we will write individually when we know we're preparing to do a new album. So there's the pre-writing, and everyone will have like a wealth of bits and pieces, sometimes complete songs, but generally like verse, chorus, whatever. Bring it into the pool, as it were, and we'll put all the ideas together and we'll listen to them. And for example, I'll have like a really good verse, but I need a chorus. Jim Gilmore has written some things, and we go, oh, that's a great chorus. That'll fit nicely with this one. We kind of construct it that way, but it really comes down to everyone being happy with whatever we're working with, because if all 5 people have to agree on working on that song. Because if you think about it, let's say the other 4 really like a particular track and say that we want to put, this should be on the album. If I don't like it, but I say fine because it's a majority, I'm going to sing it with far less conviction than if I like the song. Mm. And same goes with the guitarist. It's bass, with drums, same thing. So it's always been very democratic in that sense. If one person doesn't care for it, then we move on and we use something else. And also, if someone submits an idea and even one person goes, oh, that reminds me of, that's all you need to hear. And if someone says that reminds me of, we don't use it. Oh. It's always been that way. Because, if it reminds us, and we're very fussy, if it reminds us of something, it's going to remind somebody else of something. And we've been free of obvious influences up until now.
Hittil I år har Telenor stoppet over 20 millioner svindelanrop. Vet du hvilke nummer du kan stole på?
For sikkerhetens skyld har vi inkludert viktige sikkerhetstjenester I våre mobilabonnement, slik at du blant annet skal kunne føle deg litt tryggere når det ringer fra ukjente nummer. Bli tryggere med mobilabonnement fra Telenor. Se Telenor.no.
Kiwi jobber hver dag for å være Norges billigste lavpriskjede, og nå presser vi prisene på hundrevis av julevarer. På 1 kilo First Price Clementiner I nett setter vi prisen til 12,90. På 400 gram grønn og frisk kålrotstappe setter vi prisen til 16,90. På 400 gram grønn og frisk ertestuing setter vi prisen til 16,90. Kiwi Plus-kunder får alltid 15% trumfbonus på fersk frukt og grønn. Prisene gjelder helt fram til 31. desember, for det vi som prispresserne, og vi I Kiwi gir oss aldri på pris.
But even though I saw in an interview, you described that some fans were very into specific records and times in the Saga career, and that you also tried to not like write the same album, but recreate the feeling you had when you made just that fan favorite. So in a way,
yeah, it's not a matter of dissecting, say, a certain record and going, let's write songs. Like, we need a song like that. We need a song like that. And, that's more in reference to getting that kind of a comment, for example, and going, okay, what is it? I wonder what it is about this album that's coming across to people or to this individual. And then you listen to it and you go, okay. And as you said, you try and get back into that mindset and think, you can never fully recreate what happened during the making of a record. The best you can do is try and understand what touched those people at the time. But then again, you see, life goes on and you move on. So the person that was affected at that, let's say the album was Silent Night, and the person was really affected by that album, and they think, they would like another Silent Night. But the thing is, it's special to them because perhaps, not just with the music and what was being sung about, but what was happening for them personally at that time in their lives. So even if you, let's say you released a Silent Night right now and that Silent Night didn't exist, it might not have the same impact on that individual now than it would have had 30 years ago.
True.
So it's very tricky because you're dealing with people's changing tastes all the time and growing up and.
The last album you put out was in 2014, the Saga City. have you, now as you're going on a hiatus or whatever, we don't know yet, do you have any songs inside you now that you think that might come on an album someday?
Oh, yes. I'm always right, even on tour. I mean, after 6 weeks, I think I only was in my bunk 3 times, only on the very longer drives. But after everyone's kind of gone to their bunk, I break out my laptop and I have my recording system. And I've written already 3 pieces on this tour.
Wow.
There's just a lot there. But yeah, there's no shortage of material.
But you have some other band projects too on the side.
I do.
That you work with.
I do.
How does all this work out with so many bands at the same time?
Well, they're not active bands per se. A lot of them are guest appearances. The only project that's could be considered another band is the Dave Barrett Trio in Toronto. Which was like a power trio, instrumental power trio, until I came along and sang a song, and suddenly they have vocals now. So that's something we're pursuing, and we've just done 3 songs with Terry Brown, who produced Rush, for a while. I'm going on tour next year with what is called Rock Meets Classic in Germany. And it's 5 featured performers, and with a full-on rock band and full orchestra, and they orchestrate existing, say, hit singles or hits or whatever, and each featured performer does 3 or 4 songs. I also have I was involved in a project called Excalibur, which was a Celtic rock musical. Rock opera. That was last December. That's going to probably go out again next year. There's a project out of France called DID. This is a very, very important project, I believe. It's a concept album. And I was one of, I believe, 5 singers, and we each are a different character. DID stands for Dissociative Identity Disorder. Akin to schizophrenia. But it's one man's journey and battle with it, and I'm the bad conscience. But it's very, very, very epic. It's very, very good. I signed on to it because I loved from like the first 10 bars of hearing an example of what it was going to be like. I had to be part of it. That's just been released. And a Swedish band, a Swedish project called Impera. Johan Kilberg contacted me to see if I'd be interested in singing, doing one of the songs. So that turned into a single that's coming out in next February. So I like to stay busy.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But you also took a break from Saga a few years ago because you were so busy and wanted to spend time with your family.
Well, yeah. I'd always wanted to have a little boy. You can never predict, but I always did. And I took time off for personal reasons. And it was exactly 30 years. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, this is a good time to do it. I always said that I would wait until I was home to be able to watch him grow up. And I thought, this is the time to do it. Having said that, I believe that in the back of my mind, I had not closed the door to the possibility of returning. Although my decision was a final one, I wasn't ruling out the possibility that perhaps one day I would entertain the idea of thinking about the possibility. How's that? and after 4 years, I was just discussing how things were going with Jim Crichton, and we stayed in contact, obviously, and I followed everything Saga was doing while I was gone, of course. And we just jokingly talked about it. One day I said, maybe I should come back and we can, do a new album together. It'll be really successful and we'll go out and tour again. And we were just kind of laughing about it. And then one thing led to another, and it kind of came up in conversation. And you think we should seriously think about this? And I mean, at that point, I said, well, 3 things have to happen. First, I have to discuss it with my family, because family comes first in the meantime at that point. My wife said, yeah, get out of here. You've been out of it long enough. It's what you do. Go for it. And I was embedded in my son's life enough that he could look at the videos and see what Dad does and that kind of thing. So we understood. And I said, you also have to tell tell Rob Marotti, who replaced me for those years, you have to tell him that we're even having this conversation, because it would not be fair for us to decide that and then say, thanks very much, Rob, bye-bye, Michael's back. You can't do that. So you have to include him in this. And thirdly, you have to run it by the other guys in the band, because I don't know. Maybe there was some underlying things. Maybe there was some resentment. Maybe there was, who knows? But you have to make sure that that's what they want as well. And apparently they said yes immediately. Rob was informed. My wife kicked me out and said, get back on the road. And so I came back in 2011.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as I said, it was time enough to accomplish with my son what I wanted to accomplish and be there from the very beginning, so he knew who Dad was. The last thing I wanted was to be on the road and have my wife call me in a hotel room and say, he took his first step today, or he said his first word today. That would crush me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I read that you actually love touring too, the parts with going to the hotels and the trip and all.
I love the whole ritual of it. I mean, of course it can be tiring and that, but I mean, going on vacation can be tiring, the travel part of it. But I enjoy things I enjoy airports. I find them fascinating. And the travel and the hotels and the whole thing associated, the backstage stuff, I don't know why. It's always... I've never really complained about it. There's been journeys that were really rough and that, but again, I don't know. I just find it all, it's fodder for lyrics if nothing else, but I find it fascinating, and it can be tiring, but it's part of it. It's fun.
You also have a close relationship to the fans. You wrote that you were going to meet up with everyone that wanted to personally after the shows.
We try to. Yeah. That's the general rule. There are some venues, either logistically it's not possible, or we literally have to run out of the building as soon as we're done because of a scheduling thing. But we generally like to do it. I believe we're going to go out of our way to try and do it tomorrow night here in Oslo. But yeah, it's important. I never understand why certain musicians, they don't want to take the time to meet the fans and understand that you wouldn't be where you are without their support. And if you can create as much great music as you want, but if no one's listening to it and no one's buying it to allow you to be on the road and make money and make a living from it, then I don't understand why you're not at least appreciative. Hey, well, we do shows and we thank them on stage. No. I mean, they want to feel like they met you. They want to shake your hand and say thank you, and you should be saying thank you back. So it's a very reciprocal thing. And some musicians just don't get it, and I've never understood that. I think it's really important, and I find it great. I mean, I love talking to the fans because you find out more about where they're coming from and why they like the music and that kind of thing. I be involved with them to a point.
But we need to talk about something, I don't know, stupid or fun or weird, or because when you are touring so much, there must be some fun stories or some Spinal Tap moments or some crazy moments.
There's too many to even recount. I mean,
could you share one or two with us?
Well, one was we had a tour manager, and I can't remember where we were even, but how about that'll make it really anonymous. So we were all traveling together, band and crew, and we were rushing for a flight. It was a little bit, it was one of those delayed flights, and then it was changed to another gate, so it was a bit confusing. But I mean, if you got your wits about you, you can get it together. So we all get on the plane at the last minute. We're kind of scattered around seating wise, and no one had seen Ian, our guitar player. And we're looking around going, has anyone seen Ian? Where's Ian? And our tour manager, he holds up his boarding pass and says, well, he's got to be on the plane, guys. I've got his boarding pass right here. And we thought, wait a minute. You don't seem to understand. You can't get on the plane without one. So, I know he's on the plane, guys. Look, I've got his boarding pass. And he consequently missed the flight. So, yeah.
Oh, no.
Let me explain something to you. You have to give that to the people at the front so you can get on the airplane. So, yeah, small oversight, yeah?
Yeah, but it's a typical one probably on tour.
I don't know of anybody else who's done that. This was a special one. We got a good laugh out of that. Like I say, there's been so many. I could write a book on just those kinds of... some you can say publicly, some you can't.
Are you going to write a book?
I probably will at some point, even if it's just to satisfy myself and to be able to recall a lot of these things and have them, graphically in front of me. But I think I could. One thing I would like to do that I've been toying with lately, and we were talking about the travel and the whole ritual of touring. When you do so much of it, there are little things that you find out that are conveniences that you wouldn't normally come across, and I've found these little things along the way. Either in a hotel or a little quirky thing that if you don't know, it can help and just relieve some stress and this kind of thing. So I'd like to do like a book about touring and about what to watch, specifically for touring musicians, and little things to help you. Like when you check in a hotel, instead of doing this, try doing this. And if you've got, for example, little things, when you check in your room and it's one of these with a key card, and the power for the room, you've got to put the key card in the little slot as soon as you walk in the door. So there's power in the room. Now, if you've got, for example, you've got your computer sitting there and you're doing a lot of downloading and the very important files, but you've got to go out. If you pull that card out, it's going to kill the power. If you're gone for an extended period of time, there goes your upload or download, and potentially some files could be lost. Any magnetic card will do it. A gift card that you haven't used or from Toys R Us or whatever, just put that in the slot. That'll work. And then you've got your key and you can come and go as you please and the power stays on in your room. Little things like that. Yeah.
Sounds like you got your career set.
It's a side gig. I always wanted to work in radio too, actually.
Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you could be my co-host every time you come to Norway.
I'll move to Oslo.
Yeah, why not?
Anything's possible. I've learned to go with the flow in this life. If I'm at a certain place in my life at a certain time that I never would have thought, there's a reason why I'm there, and it's usually true.
Mm-hmm. Things happen
for a reason.
But now we have to talk a little bit about your personal taste, because you're going to pick out songs for the show. But first, do you listen a lot to music from other bands at all? Do you get the time to
I try to keep my ear to the ground. I used to be a musical snob in the beginning. It was only prog. Prog was the only music that existed. Everything else was not worth your time. I listen to everything in the meantime, because I now believe that a good song is a good song, a good melody and lyric. It doesn't matter the genre. I mean, I can, you can tell me something's a country song, and I'll say, well, if you say so, all I know is that's a good song. It pleases me, and I appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of things.
Nice. But do you think you could pick out this should be mostly hard rock, prog, and metal, of course, since it's a metal show. But if you have a good song in another genre, okay, since it's you.
No, I think
but
how many do you want?
At least one Saga song, one or two. Okay. And what about? Can we do 12?
I've got to pick 12. Wow, that'd be probably hard. I've got to take something from the very beginning in terms of our influence, for sure. So from the prog world, you've got to have a Gentle Giant track. Probably, let me see, for those who haven't heard Gentle Giant, Knots would be a great example. Mm-hmm. Anything by Boston, because I thought Boston were a phenomenal band, and Brad was a great, great, great singer. I like 30 Seconds to Mars. I like Muse in the meantime, in terms of new stuff.
Muse,
M-U-S-E.
Yeah.
And actually, I believe he's a Norwegian artist. Well, him.
No, his Finnish.
Finnish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close enough.
But yeah, close enough. Same part of the world.
Yeah.
I discovered him a few years ago. Someone turned me on to it. And what I liked about it was he reminded me of Mark Bolan in the original T.Rex, like way back. Just the whole, I don't know, there was something about it that appealed to me. There's so many different things that, if I saw a list, I'd go, oh, yes. I mean, if you threw out some names, I mean, if you ask me, do you like such and such, I'll be able to tell you probably.
Of course, you have to take some of the snobby progressive rock bands you listened to before.
Growing up, well, Gentle Giant, obviously.
Yeah.
Early Genesis with Peter Gabriel. With Peter Gabriel. No offense to Phil, but Phil's a good singer, but it suddenly got a little on the commercial side a bit later. Excuse me, because I still think that Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is a masterpiece and always will be. Anything by Queen, but probably specifically the Innuendo album, which was Freddie's last. There's some really deep-seated emotion in that record, and it's very, very, very emotional. I was hugely influenced by Freddie Mercury in terms of performance. The way he could take a crowd of 90,000 people and make it feel like you were in his living room. He could give this familiarity and this accessibility, which I try to do as well. And of course, Peter Gabriel, anything by Peter Gabriel.
Like solo?
Yeah. Yeah. I even like some Ozzy stuff. I actually sang on an Ozzy record. Ozzy Osbourne.
Did you?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah. No Rest for the Wicked.
Okay.
There's no mention of me on the credits whatsoever.
Which song is it?
I did about 4 or 5. I was doing background vocals for him.
Okay.
The story behind that was we were in Los Angeles in Jim Crichton's studio, and next door was Keith Olsen's studio. He did a lot of the 80s, very famous 80s bands. And he'd been called to fix the background vocals on No Rest for the Wicked. And he came out to me in the parking lot. We were sitting outside relaxing. He came out to me and said, "Michael, you got to help me." I said, "What's wrong?" He says, "I got to replace these vocals. I got to get them done in 48 hours. There's about 5 tracks. I need about 16 tracks of background vocals on each song." He says, "Can you help me?" I said, "Sure." He says, I'll he paid me a very good wage to do it. And I went in there and just banged them off, and 4-part harmony on 4 or 5 tracks, and it came out really well. But no mention of me.
Maybe one of those songs. Do you remember titles of one of those songs you sang on?
"Crazy Babies" was one of my. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's a good story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, not a lot of people do.
What about some Canadian music?
Rush, obviously. Not only Jim Crichton went to school with Alex Lifeson, but we did some shows with them. We know them quite well. Rush, I remember Triumph in the early days.
Yeah.
Completely different style of music than we were playing, but I could appreciate their success, and nothing specific, but a lot of good Canadian talent.
So this actually means that I'm going to choose the Triumph and Boston and
Sure.
him and Peter Gabriel and Rush songs myself.
Go ahead.
It's great.
We'll see what your favorite.
Yeah, and you can see if you approve them.
Oh,
yeah.
Well.
But what about Saga?
As a whole, I generally, when asked this question about favorite albums, I will say Behavior. And it's purely a personal thing, obviously, but it's a lot about the music and the vocal that I'm happy with. But I've come to the conclusion that I must have been in a very good headspace, whatever was happening to me at that time in my life, personally, musically, geographically. Where I was at when we made Behavior must have been a very, very good place, because when I listen to that record, I get that feeling. You know how music will transport you to a time, and not specifics, it's just you'll get that feeling of what you felt generally when you listen to that song. And Behavior does that for me. So that's why I say I'm sure that I must have been really centered at that time. That's my personal favorite. I mean, I find value in absolutely everything we did, obviously. I'm not 100% happy, but song-wise, Goodbye Once Upon a Time I'm very proud of. And the song I mentioned earlier, Goodbye.
So that's two goodbyes.
Yeah. I've been trying to say goodbye for a long time.
It seems like it.
And you know what? One of my favorite songs, and it's not very epic, and it's not very progressive sounding, but it means a lot because it was written for the fans. It's called Always There. It's one of those tracks, and it was written very sincerely. And when I wrote the lyrics for it, I was thinking, you can apply it to a really good friend. You were always there for me, and that kind of thing. But I was specifically thinking of the fans because they have always been there, and that's why one of the reasons that we've lasted 40 years. So that's a tribute to them more than anything.
Du har hørt et intervju med Michael Sadler fra Saga gjort for Jernverket høsten 2017. I episode 3 får du et gjenhør med Antichrist.
Vi søk ner oss och sen så hamnade på någon svart klubb. Ja, det var ju helt sjukt klubb. Alltså det var sjukaste jag sett. Det var bara såna här biffiga typ mafiosos med så silikon plastbrudar.
Antichrist-intervjuet legger ut nå. Du kan laste ned til foretrukken podcastleverandør eller på jernverket.com. Jeg heter Helle Stenkløv, og Jernverket podcast presenterer et nytt hardrock-intervju hver fredag. Følg Jernverket på Facebook, Instagram og jernverket.com, og gi gjerne full pott på podcasten når du først holder på. Vi høres!
Å få private bilder spredt på nett noe av det vondeste som kan skje. Og midt i all fortvilelsen det lett å føle seg totalt hjelpeløs. Hva ville du gjort i en slik situasjon?
For sikkerhetens skyld har vi inkludert viktige sikkerhetstjenester i våre mobilabonnement. Du kan blant annet få hjelp til å fjerne uønsket innhold på nett. Bli tryggere med mobilabonnement fra Telenor. Se telenor.no.